Hey folks, welcome to Weekend Update by InTheMoneyStocks.com, your leaders in pure technical analysis, avoiding all that Wall Street hype. This weekend update is for the week of January 5th, that's Monday, through Friday, January 9th. Now, what I really want to talk about in today's video is we're going to go over a little bit of the economic data coming up, any earnings news coming up. We're going to take a quick look at the charts over the last week, discuss what we saw last week, and possibly where the market could be headed in the coming week of the 5th through the 9th of January 2009. Hope everyone had a wonderful New Year's, and I hope everyone has a healthy, profitable 2009. Now, let's get going right on the charts here, and I want to talk a little bit about what we saw last week. First of all, we saw very light volume last week. Basically, you're looking at the 60-minute chart of the futures here, the ESH9 contract, the March 09 E-mini S&P 500. And really what you can see is light volume was the big issue of the week. And in with that volume, you had the markets floating up almost every day. Here's your Monday chart, which again was Monday, then you had Tuesday, Wednesday, which was New Year's Eve, and Friday over here, which was the day after New Year's, the 2nd of 2009. Now, the key here, guys, is notice you had a little bit of fluctuation, but ultimately you just continued up the whole week from the lows down here put in on the intraday chart of Monday. And if I were to take a line here and draw that all the way up, one thing I want you guys to all see is that there was a perfect trend line on the lower side of things. All right, every point was hit multiple times. Now, what you need to do going into the next week is you obviously want to keep track of this trend line, and should we come down and break it to the downside, you actually could see a nice pullback in that market. But this trend line, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 hits on that all the way up, and every hit just bounced the market to new highs on the futures. And I find that very fascinating to look at that as it lasted the whole week, was never broken to the downside, and as long as it was not broken, the markets continued to float to the upside. All right, so keep an eye on that. And one other thing you want to just note is that on the very light volume, the market was up about 8% for the week. Fantastic rally if you think about it. Volume over the whole course of the week was just slightly more than one average day of volume in the last couple of months. And so it just shows you one average day equaling 3 to 4 days of market activity. You have to take that with a grain of salt. Now, obviously, we have announced our turn dates and pivot days for the coming month in our Research Center videos that we did on Friday, and we'll continue to update everyone in the Research Center videos. So if you want to obtain the key levels, the key market data for the markets coming up in the January, and you want to know exactly where the market's going to head on spot levels, on crude, on gold, on the US dollar, on the markets, on certain stocks, then you really want to tune into the Research Center. But what I want to use this video for is to just go over what's going on. I want to look at the future week coming in with the economic data, and I want to do that now. So looking at economic data, and I'm going to leave the 60-minute chart up because I'm going to do a little more analysis on it in a minute. I just want to touch on the economic data. Early in the week, very, very light in dealing with economic data. One thing I do want to say, though, you do have construction spending on Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. That shouldn't be a big deal, but it'll tell us really, is there been any pickup since the October-November falls in the market, since the market's kind of recovered? Has construction spending increased at all? All right. The other thing I want to focus in on Tuesday, factory orders. Again, a little bit of an idea on how the market is holding up over the last little bit of the last month, since we've seen a little bit of a rally or move off the lows that we put in November. All right, so factory orders on Tuesday, construction spending on Monday, both of them at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. On Tuesday, you also have ISM services numbers, which could be very interesting. Not another big number, but just something that could affect the markets in a minor way. You could get a little bit of a sell-off or rally depending on where these numbers come out. All right, obviously people have very negative expectations for these numbers, but the one thing you have to remember is the market in this last week has risen 8%. So all of a sudden, these numbers have to be a little better to really signify the reason why we've rallied 8%. Because when you take a larger outlook, you say, okay, well, the market's up 8% in the last 1 week, then these numbers better be 8% better than people had expected, basically, to justify the move up in the market. And that's the logistics of everything, if you want to kind of, put it in simple layman's terms. On Wednesday, the other thing you want to watch is crude inventories at 10:35 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday. That'll be interesting because you're really going to focus in on what's going on with the inventories and in regards to the Hamas-Israel conflict, where we're now seeing on this Saturday ground troops go in. Now, is that going to cause an impact? We called the the base and the bottom and the turn date on oil once we saw the confirmation of it a couple weeks ago. Since then, oil's up about 15 to 20% off those lows. Absolutely tremendous rally on oil. The USO going from anywhere between the mid-30s, and I can show you the USO chart here on the daily. Really, here's where we saw it. Right here was the pivot point put in. We called this pivot. You got a beautiful retrace as we expected, and then a monster move up on oil. And again, that was released in the Research Center for all our subscribers. Now, continue to watch those inventory numbers, because if they do start to shock on being lower than expected, you're going to see continued move up in oil. Although it wouldn't be surprising to see a pullback this next week on oil after a monster move this week. You definitely will see some resistance coming in right around this level up here on the charts. All right, and again, if you really want key levels, then you got to join the Research Center at inthemoneystocks.com. Economic data, folks. Initial claims on Thursday. That's going to be pretty big. Not as big as Friday's unemployment rate. That's going to be the monster number for the week, and that's what I really want to direct our attention to. So really all the numbers prior to Friday, whether it's construction spending, factory orders, ISM, crude inventories, is really an initial claims on Thursday. It's going to come all down to non-farm payrolls, unemployment rate, hourly earnings on Friday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. That'll be the big thing. The unemployment rate is what everyone's going to be looking for. The market seems to be pricing in around 7%. So you really want to figure out that 7%. We'll see if the market comes in better. I mean, if the numbers come in better or worse than that level. Okay, next I want to quickly touch on some earnings for next week, because there are just a smattering, a splattering of a few companies here that are going to be worth watching. On Monday, Mosaic. Mosaic's in the ag stocks, all right? So let's take a look at the chart on Mosaic. Mosaic's still at the lower end of the chart, but it has had a nice move up with the rally last week, rallying basically from the 50 and 20 moving average here at around $31 to closing at around 37 at the end of the week. So a Mosaic is going to have to be pretty good to justify the move up. You can also see there is a little resistance on this point. Now, it could easily justify it, I don't know, but the point being is it's already rallied about 10 to 20% this last week, and therefore earnings have to come in and do that much better than expectations to justify the move up in price. Tuesday, really not a lot of earnings coming out on Tuesday of significance. There's a few companies, but they're all relatively small caps or mid caps that don't have an impact on the market. On Wednesday, however, Bed Bath & Beyond will report earnings. Now, this is going to be big because you'll get a sense of how retail sales were for the holiday season. All right, and that's the other thing I want to touch on. You're going to start to get words from these retailers, whether it's Best Buy, whether it's Sears, a lot of these companies on retail sales for the holiday. You had that last week into New Year's and New Year's Day. Now they're going to have those after holiday sales as well in, and you'll get an idea this week probably about how well they were. If they're horrible, expect the markets to react accordingly. If they were better than expected, the markets may continue to push up a little bit. But again, I have to bring forward that point that you already rallied 8% in the markets over the last week on very light volume, so you're pricing in slightly better. If they're as bad as people had feared or worse, then you're going to probably see a pullback in the markets, even if they're on par, just because of the rally, okay? So keep that in mind. The other thing I want to mention, on Wednesday, on the 7th of January, you have Monsanto. Monsanto, another agri player, and MON is the symbol on that. And again, last week, look at that nice move up. Granted, it was off a beautiful double bottom, and I want to just point that out. Notice the support line it came down to, and then look at the rally that took us up, really filling the gap right here. Little gap fill on the chart right through the 20. So that's hitting resistance right in that range. You're also going to have very significant resistance right up here as the 50 moving average is inching into that level. Okay, so keep an eye on that as well on the Monsanto earnings on Wednesday. Thursday brings us, let's see what Thursday can bring us here. Not a whole lot that I'm seeing on Thursday. Scanning down my list of earnings players. And, Schnitzer Steel. You have a steel company that's not a big player, but it'll give us a little sense about demand for the steel out there. And that's always good because the market needs to know, obviously, how that demand is shaping up going into the new year, how it was last quarter. And obviously, it's going to be horrible numbers. You'd have to figure it's going to be very, very poor numbers. Friday, really no earnings to speak of at all. A few companies. KB Homes may be of interest on Friday to be watched before the market opens. KBH is the symbol there. And that's, again, you want to focus in on the companies that are reporting key things in the economy, like housing, commodity demand like steel, Monsanto, obviously, ag is a commodity, agri stuff, soil and all those fertilizers is obviously an economy barometer because it plays into that. So watch that, folks, all right? Now, just going back to the daily charts of the SPY, just going to draw on some key levels here. I'm not going to discuss what they are or what they mean or what our projections are. That's for you guys to join the Research Center and find out. But these are all key levels that need to be watched, obviously, and you want to watch them very closely going into the market here, all right? There are your key levels right there in the near term, and I'll even draw in a couple more. And there we go. All right, so again, folks, join the Research Center to get your prime levels. Figure out, I talk about what all these lines mean in the Research Center videos. We also do a daily market report as well as hidden gems report, and there'll also be a Pro Traders watch list debuting very shortly on there as well, which will have the In the Money Stocks Pro Traders watch list every day posted about what stocks we're watching, what stocks are we looking to trade on our watch list every day. And it'll be updated every day if they change. All right, come join the Research Center. We will see you shortly. Have a wonderful weekend. Good luck, profitable week. We'll be posting as well on the blogs that we've started across the web. Take care.